Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking all about the difference between self-love and self-care. So a few weeks ago I posted a whole video on self-love and what that actually is and how to cultivate self-love for yourself. But then I got a very interesting question about what the difference is between self-love and self-care. And I was like, oh my god, this video needs to be made because the internet goes crazy about this. A lot of the whole pilates with my friends, taking bubble baths, going to the spa to get my nails done, all those things are not self-love, and we're gonna talk all about that right now in this video. So if you're interested, grab a cute drink. We're doing water because, as you guys know, we're starting the New Year's diet right now. A pencil and a paper, and let's talk all about self-love versus self-care. Chapter number 1, let's talk about the definition of self-love versus self-care. Self-love has everything to do with learning to love yourself for who you are as a person. That includes everything to do with who you are previously. So all the previous versions of you, we gotta learn to love them too, appreciate them too, and understand where they were coming from when it comes to certain situations. Self-love also has to do with loving yourself right now. So who you are as a person currently, learning to increase your self-esteem, having self-confidence, and coming in tune with who you are as a person in your present energy. Also coming in tune with your emotions, why it is that you feel a certain way, why it is that you cope with things in a certain manner. All of that has to do with self-love, understanding who you are as a person. Like I mentioned in the self-love video, you have to come in tune and learn you. The same way you would come to know another person, someone new that you've met, you want to do the same thing with yourself. Getting to know who you are, understanding what you love, and understanding why you love it. That's the whole purpose of self-love and cultivating that for yourself. Self-care are actions that you take to show yourself physical, mental, and overall well-being for your life. And that care is going to depend on your hobbies, your needs, and just the things that you like in general or things that you like to do for yourself. So the difference between self-love and self-care is very big. The line is like right there. And sometimes we can confuse the two, right? Thinking that going to Pilates, going to yoga, or whatnot constitutes as self-love. No, that constitutes as self-care, doing things for your well-being in terms of your physical, mental, and maybe emotional well-being. But self-love has to do with understanding yourself, meaning when you're in a public situation where, let's say somebody's judging you or somebody's being mean to you, can you hold your own ground? Can you understand who you are as a person and show up as your best self? That's self-love. That's the difference between the two in a nutshell. Chapter number 2, let's talk about a few examples that show the difference between self-love and self-care in a more clear manner. Number 1, self-love has to do with self-compassion, meaning understanding why you do things, maybe in a situation where you acted out of line, out of character. Understanding why you did that, understanding what caused you to feel that way, maybe having inner dialogue with yourself and making sure that you're being your best friend. You're trying to understand where you come from as a person. That's an act of self-love. Something that really helped me on my self-love journey was doing voice notes. Whenever I was in a situation, let's say with like a friend or a guy where I was like, oh my god, super overwhelmed about it, and I needed to release, I would basically open my phone, create a voice note, and just talk to myself and be like, okay, this is what I would say to like my best friend. So I'm gonna say that to myself so I can show myself some self-love and compassion in this situation. And it helps so much because it'll help you lay out everything of how you feel. You'll be able to kind of just lay out all of your emotions and understand where those are coming from. Sometimes when I've done these voice notes, I literally get the answer within myself because, like I've said in so many videos, guys, the only person that knows you super well is yourself. Once you learn to cultivate that relationship with yourself, you'll be able to listen to your inner voice and intuition and allow for that to be the guiding source of helping you get through things in life. Number 2, self-love has to do with self-acceptance. And an example of this is your self-esteem. So when you look at yourself in the mirror, how do you feel? Learn to build that relationship with yourself. Learn to build a positive relationship with what you look like physically. And I know, guys, this is so difficult to do because growing up, we had so much like bullying and like social media and the influence that that has on us. But learning to have self-love is by allowing yourself to appreciate what you look like, for who you are, for your physical features. And one of the things I love to tell myself whenever I feel a little moment of like low self-esteem is that the features that are on my face, on my body, are basically passed down from people who love me. And so I should learn to appreciate that and love them for what they are, you know, and not try to change them and become like everybody else. Like I always say, there's only one of you that exists on this planet. You are very unique in your own way. So try to learn to love yourself for who you are because there's only one you and we need that version of you. So be yourself. Number 3, when it comes to self-love, is putting your needs first. When you love yourself, you understand what your need is and you don't allow people to cross your boundaries. If a person comes into your space and let's say is super relate on you, doesn't reply to your text messages, literally just doesn't want to have anything to do with you except for when they need something from you, having self-love means you have boundaries and understanding that that's not acceptable and you're not willing to allow that into your life. Another form of self-love in this is if you have a friend group that you don't resonate with that much, that maybe has a negative influence on you, having self-love means you have boundaries enough to tell them, hey, that doesn't work for me and I don't want to do that thing, so please respect my opinion. That's a form of self-love. Another form of self-love, if you're dealing with a guy right now that is being very wishy-washy, up and down, and you don't like the way that that's making you feel, an act of self-love is literally taking yourself out of that situation, allowing yourself to have boundaries when you're in situations like that because you understand that you deserve more than that. And number 4, when it comes to self-love, is having a commitment and support for your future self. When you really love yourself, you understand that person that you want to become. And so in order to become that person, you need to support their goals, support their dreams, and commit to who they are becoming. That means if you've said that you're going to start waking up earlier and going to the gym in the morning, you're going to get up and do that, even though it's hard, even though it's difficult, because you have a commitment that you've made to your future self in order to become that version of yourself. Understand that at the end of the day, you are your own best friend. You are the person that will be able to cultivate that relationship with yourself. So you need to make sure that you're actually working towards doing that and respecting that version of yourself enough to be doing that. That is a form of self-love. So whenever you self-sabotage, whenever you fall out of line with what you should actually be doing, consider this. Remember that you have a commitment to that person and make sure that you're doing the best that you can to become that version of yourself. Moving on to self-care habits. Number 1, maintaining a good physical and dietary routine. So this could be maybe if you want to work out 4 times a week, if you want to eat a certain diet, if you want to cut down on sugary foods. Those are all forms of self-care, not self-love. Remember, what we're looking at here is the form of self-love means you have a commitment and support of doing that. The actual act of doing it is a form of self-care. So going to the gym is great, it's wonderful. Maintaining a diet is wonderful as well. However, if you don't have the mental capabilities to back that up, saying, hey, I'm doing this for my future self. I'm doing this because these are the goals I'm trying to support. The aspect of self-love is not there. So please ensure that you have both of these in line, and that is basically how you support self-care with self-love. Number 2, establishing good morning and night routines. This is a form of self-care, meaning if you're doing some sort of form of journaling, it could be meditation, it could be just relaxing and breathing, or perhaps having a very clear schedule with yourselves, making sure that you're waking up at a certain time, you're reading in the morning, you're doing some sort of form of meditation, you're being on time to the commitments that you have, and then at night, it could be falling asleep at a certain time, removing any blue light, so phone or television away from you maybe 30 to 40 minutes before you actually have to fall asleep. Those are self-care rituals. Even your skincare is a form of self-care rituals. They're very different from having a form of self-love. In order to back up your self-care with your self-love, have compassion for yourself. When you're doing journaling, think about what you're journaling. Think about asking yourself deep questions to understand yourself so that you can ensure that you're also promoting your self-love in the process. And number 3, and this is the biggest one that I see all over social media. I'm sure you guys see this one all the time. The whole skincare, bubble baths, all of that stuff, face masks. Guys, I'm just gonna say it, that is not self-love. If you are not actively working on yourself on the other side by trying to understand yourself, by trying to build a committed relationship with yourself, all of those rituals of bubble baths and taking care of yourself, skincare, trying on a ton of makeup, all that stuff is not gonna cut it, because all that does for you is an external band-aid. That's all that it is. Pilates with your girls, etc. is an external band-aid. Until you don't have a clear sense of self, understanding yourself for who you are, and ensuring that you're meeting your needs and not overstepping your boundaries, it's going to be very difficult for you to actually learn to love yourself in the process of just having bubble baths. So I highly recommend to still do those self-care activities because they're wonderful. They're a good way to relax and just be in your present energy, but also understand that you need to make time in your day for the other activities as well. Whether that be trying to understand yourself. When you're reading, pick books that resonate with you. Maybe there's trauma in your life that you want to overcome. Pick a book that might be more in line with that. One of the things that I love to do, which is a self-care activity, but piggybacks on self-love, is on my drive home from work or like my drive to work, I listen to an audiobook. And it's an audiobook that has to do with something I'm trying to change in my life. And this helps so much, guys, because yes, it is a form of self-care by reading and listening to audiobooks and things like that, but the topics that I'm listening to are helping me think in terms of self-love. One of the books I'm listening to right now is What Confident Women Do by Kate Richardson. And this book makes me think so much. Like on my drive home, when I'm listening to this book, it literally makes me think about the answer that I would respond to her question. So there was this part in the book where she was like, okay, think about a moment where you had low self-esteem and how that made you feel. And so in the car, I was thinking about that. I was like, okay, I feel like I was in this situation that made me feel this way, and this is why it made me feel this way, and this is what I think I should do about it moving forward. So that is a form of self-love. At the end of the day, remember that self-care activities, as wonderful as they are with, all the cute drinks and bubble baths and face masks, they're great, but you need to ensure that you have self-love that backs that up. Or what's gonna happen is you're gonna go take a bubble bath and then you're gonna come out of it and feel nothing. You're gonna feel kind of more drained or tired that you were in that process, or maybe you relaxed, but you didn't actually get to know yourself a little bit more. So I highly recommend that you try to do things that piggyback off of these two. They are definitely related, but they are not the same. So next time you go on social media and you see people being like, take a bubble bath, that's a form of self-love, remember that it is not. A form of self-love is understanding boundaries. It's being compassionate with yourself. It's loving yourself for who you are. It's respecting yourself and respecting who you are becoming. It is committing to who you want to be. That is self-love. Alright guys, so I hope this video gave you a little bit of perspective in terms of what self-love is versus self-care. I made an entire video on how to learn to love yourself and start a self-love journey, but I hope this also kind of helped you differentiate between the two, because I get it guys, on social media these words are used interchangeably and they are not the same. So I want to make sure that you guys are cultivating that self-love journey and supporting it with self-care, not just doing self-care activities without a sense of self-love. I believe in you, I know you can do it, and I'll see you next time.